we should return to a TradCon history in the future, that's just a dead end as far as you're concerned?
Well, I think we just need to be a bit more attentive to where we are. And I think we can afford to be a little bit more respectful of the dynamics within individual couples. I mean, it's generally like there are patterns which emerge, in any given heterosexual couple, that's been together long term. There'll be things which are more typical of the male partner and things which are more typical of the female partner. And and that's fine. We shouldn't be trying to fight against those stereotypes if they're what works for people. But I don't see much point in imposing kind of you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that. Because ultimately, people
need
work
guidelines.
out
People do need guidelines.
But people, people can figure out what works best for them. I mean, here's one example. So, talking in very general terms, I mean, I've made the argument that the problem with TradWives as such is that they're just not trad enough. In the sense that what they're harking back to is a sort of mid-20th century template, which was actually only true for a very small subset of the middle class, right. And which is in itself distinctively modern, because in pre-modern times, all women worked, pretty apart from the very, very richest.
Right, so you're saying
the idea of
send it further back, agrarian, grab your pestle and mortar and hoe and get working.
So the question I want to ask is, what does a 21st century version of the pre-modern productive household look like? The house, where the basic economic unit is your household, and so you've agreed you're all in it together. You're there for the long term. Everything that you do for the team, and then it's just a matter of agreeing of figuring out how to get the best out of everybody. And I can't. I'm not interested in legislating for any given couple what that looks like. And in a modern context where most of us work in the world of bits and bytes anyway, I don't know. I can't make that determination for you.
Yeah.
But there will be a way. When you form your household and you make your decision about how you can get the best out of your productive household, there'll be a pattern. And I think there's no shame in accepting that sometimes that can fit into a more traditional mold.
What was that insight that you had about women needing to develop a strategy for not having it all?
Well, I guess that's just a variation on talking about productive households. Because I mean, again, in Feminism Against Progress, the analogy I've given is weaving, which I think it's a very powerful illustration of what happened to women's work at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. In that, for some sort of 10, 20, 30,000 years prior to the Industrial Revolution, weaving was always women's work, and there are solid practical reasons for that. Weaving is something. I mean, a household needs textiles, right? You don't have textile factories. Somebody needs to make textiles. You need them for clothes, and you need them for all sorts of different things. So somebody's got to do the weaving, and somebody's also got to look after the kids. Happily, weaving and looking after kids are fairly compatible, because you can raise a loom off the floor. You can put down your repetitive. You can do it whilst keeping an eye on toddlers or small people running around, and it's interruptible and it's social. So it's ideal work to be getting on with while you've also got small children underfoot. And so for millennia after millennia, weaving has been women's work. But weaving was also one of the first industries to move out of the home into factories. And at that point, it was much more difficult for it to continue to be women's work. And those working class women who went to work in the textile mills had real dilemmas on their hands, because I mean, what are you meant to do with your breastfed baby? And there are horror stories about how women tried their best to cope with that. Babies drugged with opium, or left to starve, or left in the inadequate care of there's awful stuff. And then there are those women who respond by just saying, okay, fine, we're not going to make the textiles anymore, so we're just going to focus on different stuff. But the point is that weaving is a fine example of the kind of work which in pre-modern times took place within a productive household. And I suppose the question I have is, what kinds of work, let's say you want to be a mum, and let's say you've got small children around underfoot, what's the equivalent work that's a bit interruptible, that's a bit social, that's a bit, you can pick it up and put it down again.
That's not what people think about when they think about have it all, though, right?
You can't have it all, come on. Everybody knows that. Well, they ought to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, enough feminists prior to me have leveled with the world. You can't have it all. You can have a lot, and you can have a great time doing it, but you can't have it all of the time, all at once. You have to do some things one after another.
Louise said that she worked it out and she was doing 40 hours a week of breastfeeding, like a more than full-time job of just that part, just that one vertical underneath the child having process.
Yeah. And that's not something you can outsource, because it's not just food. There's a whole the foundational layers of your child's
mother making, child making,
foundational aspects of your child's capacity for self-regulation and your child's capacity for being an integrated person are laid down in those early interactions. It's not something which can be subcontracted.
Do you think that
profoundly important work?
This was something that Mary Eberstadt said to me. She thinks that motherhood's a mimetic desire, at least in some regard. That one of her answers to the birth rate decline is that fewer mothers beget fewer mothers.
I think there's some truth in that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think, I'm trying to think, how many babies did I ever hold before my own? Not very many, to be honest, if any. It's possible that the first baby I ever held was my own, or if not the first, certainly very close to the first. And I was in my late 30s. Yep. You just think, this is crazy. There was not even that long ago, there was a time when you'd have been left holding younger siblings or other people's kids, or you'd have been around little babies, and it wouldn't have been frightening in the same way. But it's one of the reasons middle class older mothers like me sit there with our late stage pregnancies frantically consuming baby books, is because we don't have that practice around us anymore. Because families have got smaller and extended families have got more scattered and extended families have got smaller as well. So as Mary so eloquently explains in her, she writes a lot about the shrinking of the family and the atomizing effect that has, and the loss that imposes on everyone.
In other news, this episode is brought to you by Element. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. It's a healthy alternative to sugary electrolyte drinks, and it is the best way that I have started my morning every single day for over 3 years now. It contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, or any other junk. Your adenosine system that caffeine acts on isn't active for the first 90 minutes of the day, but your adrenal system is, and salt acts on your adrenal system. So if you want to be more awake, want to regulate your appetite, curb cravings, and have better brain health, this is the way to start your day. Head to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom to get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box. Plus, there is a no BS, no questions asked refund policy, so you can buy it 100% risk-free. That's drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom.
Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip with Mary, you will love the full-length podcast, which you can watch right here. Go on. Tap it.